Hi everyone, welcome to this year's big holiday gift guide. I thought it seemed appropriate to film in front of the Christmas tree. I love these glass baubles because the light shine through so nicely. If you're new here, my name is Jen. I'm an author and a book reviewer. And last week or the week before, I asked you to send me your gift conundrums. Dear Jen / Santa, I need a gift for this person in my life. These are the things that they enjoy. Please, could you recommend a book for me to give to them? There were hundreds of requests, but I am going to answer 50 of them in this video. And if I don't answer your request, I'm really sorry, but you can leave them, copy and paste them in a comment down below if you're still stuck for an idea, and I'll try and reply in text form in the comment section. So that would be my suggestion. Oh, 2 bits of housekeeping before I dive into the book recommendations. Number 1, I am doing Vlogmas over on Patreon this year. So Vlogmas is an ancient YouTube tradition whereby you upload a video every day on the run up to Christmas. Now, I do not have the capacity to do that on my YouTube channel to make proper videos every day. But what I'm doing over on Patreon is every weekday on the run up to Christmas, I'm doing a very informal one-take video taking you through my bookshelves. So every day is a shelf. I talk about each book, when I got it, why I've kept it if I've already read it, how long it's been sitting there unread if it is not read, and then also deciding to unhaul a couple of books if I go through and think I'm not sure that I want to keep this any longer. So if that tickles your fancy, then the link to Patreon is in the description box down below. It's $2 for the entire month, but all of the usual content will still be going up on this channel too. Don't worry, this is just a little something extra. And the second bit of housekeeping is that I'm going to be recommending lots of books in this video, but I also have written books myself. That is my job. I am an author. I have 10 published books with 2 new ones coming out next year, which we can talk about at some point in the future. So if you think you would like to perhaps gift one of my books to someone in your life, that's always very kind. There are links to those in the description box down below. But briefly, I have written 3 nonfiction books about bookshops because I was a bookseller for a long time. And one of those is called the Bookshop Book, which is about 300 wonderful bookshops all around the world. I have written a collection of magical realist, fairy tale-esque short stories for grown-ups called The Beginning of the World in the Middle of the Night. I have written 3 picture books for children called the Franklin and Luna series, which are illustrated by the wonderful Katie Harnett. It's about a book-loving dragon and his best... My phone just fell down. It's about a book-loving dragon and his best friend called Luna. And there are 3 Franklin's Flying Bookshop, Franklin and Luna Go to the Moon, and Franklin and Luna and the Book of Fairy Tales. Those are for any age, but primarily for children 3 to 7. Then there's The Sister Who Ate Her Brothers, which is a collection of gruesome fairy tales from around the world with positive representation of disability, disfigurement, and queerness. It's illustrated by Adam D'Souza, and this is for anyone 8, 9 upwards. I have a poetry collection called the Girl Aquarium 2, which is a collection of poetry for grown-ups, and it's about forests and seas and girlhood and body and disability and all of that stuff. So links to all of those are in the description box down below. But let us dive into the recommendation, the personalized recommendation part. This is going to give me interesting lighting. I'm not going to list all of the books in the description box down below because there are going to be so many, but if I can, I will insert the covers here if my hands are up to it today. All right, so number 1, a book for someone who prefers literature that is more experimental, but also loves folklore. For this, I would recommend the Book of Alternate Endings. I think that's the Archive of Alternate Endings by Lindsay Drager, which is a very experimental book looking at alternate histories or realities for the characters of Hansel and Gretel. It's bizarre, but I enjoyed it. Number 2, a book for my brother who teaches ancient history and loves sci-fi and philosophy. For him, I would recommend Stone Gods by Jeanette Winterson, which is about the same couple reappearing at different points throughout history and into the future. It has that science fiction element because of the time travel, but it is heavily philosophical as well, and I just think it's really, really lovely. Number 3, A book that does interesting things with layout / typography, but is also an emotional wallop. Well, for emotional wallop, I think we have to go for Max Porter, and both Lanny and Grief is a Thing with Feathers are books that play around with layout and typography, not to a ridiculous degree, but they definitely play around with form, and I think that it really lends itself to the subject matter, and I think it's applied with great precision, and I love it. Number 4. Oh, I should probably say what they are. Lanny is a folklore-inspired tale about a young boy who goes missing in a commuter town, and there is a green man type character. Grief is a Thing with Feathers is inspired by Ted Hughes's character Crow, who appears in a family's home after a member of the family has died as this embodiment of grief. It's very intense and very wonderful. I am looking for number 4, gothic / creepy books with lesbian characters. Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield is creepy as heck, and it's about 2 women who are married, and one of them goes on an expedition to the bottom of the sea in a submarine, and when she comes back she is not quite the same because she found something at the bottom of the sea, and it was not a fun time. Number 5, cozy queer graphic novels. Anything by Kay O'Neill. I would particularly recommend Princess Ever After, which is just like a hug and a cup of tea at the same time. So good. Number 6, Jen, I'm looking for a coffee table type book that's very interesting to actually read as well as look at. There's an anthology that I am part of, which is a beautiful coffee table book called Do You Read Me, which, like my book, The Bookshop Book, is about bookshops all around the world, but my book is text-based and is talking to the booksellers and more about history and describing the books through words, whereas Do You Read Me has text in it as well, but is primarily a very beautiful book to look at and has lots of amazing photographs of bookshops around the world. So they're for quite different audiences, but if you're looking for a coffee table book, Do You Read Me is definitely one I would recommend. Number 7, Jen, I'm looking for a book for my dad, who is not a big reader, but enjoyed Dick Francis and John le Carré. So I think I would recommend the British Library crime classics. They're often on 3 for 2, and they are old school classic books. And they're just really beautiful as well. My favourite one that I have read is called The Santa Claus Murder. It was very good fun and obviously a great gift for Christmas. Number 8, Jen, I need a book for someone who loved the Cosmicomics. The weirder the better. So the Cosmicomics is very fun. That is by Italo Calvino. I have 2 recommendations for you. I would recommend My Life in the Bush of Ghosts by Amos Tutuola, who wrote lots of fairy tale inspired fiction. And this is quite fragmented in the same way as the Cosmicomics. And if you can find a copy of The Evolutionary Revolution by Lily Hong, that would be like my top recommendation, but I think it's out of print. You may be able to find it on Abe Books, so ABE Books, or just look through secondhand booksellers on Bibliobooks, if they're still going. I don't know if they're still going. But anyway, if you can find a copy of that, it's so weird and perfect for a fan of the Cosmicomics. Number 9, I need a book for a friend who loves witchy books and mindfulness and tattoos, please. May I recommend another anthology that I am part of, Spiritus Mundi. It is gorgeous. It is inspired by tarot and also writing techniques. And I wrote a piece on automatic writing, but it has all of this tattoo-like illustration inside as well. It's just beautiful and lots of great writers inside, which sounds like a weird thing to say when I'm one of them. Know that I'm talking about the other people apart from me. Number 10, Jen, I need a rec for my best friend who loves Sarah Moss, Caris Bray and Hala Alian. So I would recommend Things We Do Not Tell the People We Love by Huma Qureshi, which is a heart-crushing short story collection. Definitely reminded me of Caris Bray and Sarah Moss in the way that family is written about. Number 11, Jen, I need a book for a friend who loves everything British, nature, and Jane Austen. So this isn't specifically Jane Austen, but I would recommend Grounding by Lula Ellender. It definitely ticks the other boxes of nature and very British. It's a memoir where Lula is writing about her family home and her mum passing passing away and her wanting to keep the garden, but she's worried they're going to lose the home, and this conundrum of nurturing something that you know is maybe going to be taken away from you. And it's also looking at how artists throughout history have used gardens and natural spaces to explore their thoughts and feelings. I just love it. Number 12, I'm looking for a sweeping multi-generational family drama set outside of the UK US. They have read Pachinko and Homegoing already. I would recommend Build Your House Around Your Body by Violet Cooper-Smith, which is a family saga set in Vietnam, and it was longlisted for the Women's Prize this year. It's great. I'm looking for something for my mum who loves World War II fiction but wants to look at other historical periods. Remarkable Creatures by Tracy Chevalier is pre-World War, did you say 1 or 2? Pre-World War II. And I just think that it's charming, and I always recommend it for people who love historical fiction. It's about discovering fossils. It's about Mary Anning. It's great. Number 14, a ghost story, please. I would recommend The Therapist by Niall Giacomelli, which is a strange short book about our world where an epidemic is spreading everywhere. But don't worry, the epidemic is that people are turning invisible and are effectively turning into ghosts. It is haunting and wonderful. Number 15, I would like a little sexy gothic fiction a la Crimson Peak that's not obvious, i.e. not Rebecca, not Jane Eyre, not Hill House. Okay, so A Helping Hand by Celia Dale is a little bit sexy in places, mostly quite unsettling. Mrs. March by Virginia Vito, again, I think would fall under that umbrella. And also Mrs. Caliban by Rachel Ingalls. Both Mrs. Caliban and Mrs. March are books that kind of, well, actually all three of these are books that dissect the happy married couple facade in a really creepy and unsettling way. I think all three of these would fulfill the need that you have. Number 16, I would like something that is weird and surreal with heart, like Piranesi. I would recommend Strange Beasts of China by Yang Ji, which I think is translated by Jeremy Tiang. I think that's right. It's published by Tilted Axis Press, and I absolutely love it. It is about a world where mythical creatures live in the streets of, I think it's in Beijing, and a journalist is trying to find out where they're hiding and why they exist and why they're interacting with humans. It is just, it's so lovely. Number 17, I need a book for my nephew who is 3 and loves making up stories. If it's not too cheeky, I would recommend my book, Franklin's Flying Bookshop, because it's all about the importance of stories and coming up with stories. And I would also recommend something called, I think it is called the Story Box. And I have used that before when I've gone into schools. It is a box of fairy tale cards, and you can make up your own story by arranging the cards in different orders. It's all illustration based, so a child just needs to arrange the images and then they can verbally tell a story of what they've created if they want to do that. Number 18, a book for my friend who loves cozy classics and creepy horror books. All right, let's merge both of those things and say The Hopkins Manuscript by R.C. Sheriff, which is a Persephone classic, and it's from the late 1940s, and it's about the moon colliding with the earth, and it has this horror element to it, but as I said, it is a cozy classic as well, so hopefully your friend will enjoy that. Number 19, magical realism, please. Short stories or short novels. I'd recommend Rioth de la Luz and her novella Itza, which is about water witches in Mexico, or Hiromi Kawakami, especially her book Records of a Night Too Brief, which is 3 long short stories all bound together in one book. Hi Jen, I need something like Mrs. Death, please. Creatures of Passage by Maroa Yejiri. This was my favourite book that was on the long list for the Women's Prize for Fiction this year. It definitely gave me Selena Godin vibes, and it is about death as well and Black history, and it's just wonderful. Number 21, short, atmospheric, creepy, haunting, preferably a mystery. Eleanor Knows by Claudia Pinheiro, which is about a woman who's trying to find out what happened to her daughter. Everyone thinks that she died by suicide. She thinks that she didn't. So she's, over the course of this one day, trying to find out what went wrong. It's also about her having Parkinson's and her daily life with that. I'd also recommend Phewf by Catherine Lacey, which is unsettling and creepy and kind of a mystery about this child that turns up in this town and no one knows where they came from. Number 22, I need a book for someone who likes crime fiction and trains. Now, a lot of the British Library crime classics are set on trains. I'd also recommend Strangers on a Train by Patricia Highsmith. I don't know if that is too on the nose if they already really like crime and trains, because that seems like, you know, a perfect marriage. But if they don't have that one already, then that one. Number 23, a book with haunted houses and found family. Christmas Days by Jeanette Winterson has haunted, like, Christmas ghost stories in, but is also about the importance of found family and creating your own holiday traditions. So I would definitely recommend that. Very cozy for this time of year. Number 24, my sister who loves nature and animals and facts about them, but only reads fiction. Kieran Millwood Hargrave's new series of children's books, if she's into reading middle grade. I am. I really enjoyed Julia and the Shark, as well as Layla and the Blue Fox, but I think Julia and the Shark was my favourite of those two. And if you want a book more geared towards grown-ups, then The Wolf Border by Sarah Hall is about rewilding of wolves in the Lake District and is about motherhood and nature. Number 25. Dear Jen, I am looking for a book where the landscape / climate / house / other is the main character. I've read and loved Lanny and The Little Stranger. Have you read Piranesi by Susanna Clarke? Because the house, the world is such a big element of that book. If you have, and you're up for reading poetry, then might I recommend Houses by Nikki Walshinger, which is one of the most beautiful collections of poetry I've read in a really long time. Number 26. Hi Jen, I need a book for my brother who mainly reads non-fiction. He likes sci-fi, time travel, aliens, humour and video games. Universal Love by Alexander Weinstein. That would be my recommendation. It's like Black Mirror in short story collection form. Number 27, hello Jen, I'm looking for a book recommendation for my friend Becky. She's a fan of historical fiction, Victorian arts and crafts and 20s era in particular, loves Elizabeth McNeil, Kate Moss, Edward Carey. She's a fan of the arts, textiles and all things magical. Thank you and warm wishes. 3 recommendations for you. The Mermaid and Mrs. Hancock, that was it, by Imogen Hermes Gower, if she hasn't read that before. Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead doesn't have any magical elements to it, but is a wonderfully rich book. And also Bodies of Light by Sarah Moss, which I feel is maybe more under the radar when it comes to historical fiction, because I feel she's most known for her contemporary books, but her historical fiction is also wonderful. Again, no magical elements, but brilliant historical fiction. Number 28. I enjoy reading novels on family, couple and sibling relationships. I've enjoyed Celeste Ng, and I also love Silver Sparrow. Have you read Transcendent Kingdom by Yaa Gyasi? That was one of my favourite books from the Women's Prize last year. Yes, last year. It's about sibling relationship, but also mother-daughter and mother-son relationship. It's about science, religion, addiction. It will destroy you. Definitely destroyed me at the time. Number 29, hi Jen, I'm looking for a book for someone who enjoys how Murakami combines the surreal and mundane, but is interested in reading other writers. Braised Pork by Anne Yu definitely reminded me of that kind of matter-of-fact, holding back, but writing about very intense subjects in a believable way. It's about a woman whose husband mysteriously dies one day, and then she goes on a quest to discover what happened, but for the most part before that she spends a lot of time at the bar, and it has all this water imagery in it. It's great. Hello Jen, number 30. I am looking for a recommendation for my 74-year-old dad. He enjoys volunteering with the church gardening group, going on outings with the walking group, politics and history. May I recommend This Green and Pleasant Land by Aisha Malik, which is about a character who's living in a small village outside of Birmingham, and on her deathbed his mum asks him, Bilal, if he will build a mosque in her honour. And he agrees to it, and then afterwards is like, why did I agree to this in this sleepy little English village? And he comes across a lot of backlash. He comes across a lot of backlash. It's about community. There's a lot of humour and heart to it, and I definitely recommend it. Number 31, Hi Jen. I have chronic pain disability and I romanticize the ocean. I feel that. I love fairy tales and I'm fascinated with mermaids. Have you read The Mermaid's Daughter by Anne Claycomb? Would you recommend it? I haven't read it, so I cannot recommend, but I can recommend some other things. Again, if it's not cheeky, my book, The Beginning of the World in the Middle of the Night, has a short story all about the ocean and also disability and disfigurement and how those things intertwine when it comes to the life of one particular girl. Also in The Sister Who Ate Her Brothers, there's a short story which is about disability and the sea. But I would also recommend Sea Women by Chloe Timms, which is a dystopian book set on an island. And Chloe herself is a disabled writer, and this also includes a character with a disfigurement. I thought it was great. And similarly, I would recommend The Gloaming by Kirsty Logan, which is also about a character who has a disfigurement, and it's about the sea and possible mermaids and just sublime. Number 32, Dear Jen. I feel like I'm getting out of breath, and also I need to stretch my leg out a little bit. Dear Jen, my partner has aphantasia, i.e. he is unable to picture things in his mind. Because of this, he really struggles to read fiction, but would love to give it another go. He loves nonfiction books surrounding the topics of nutrition, spirituality, well-being, the human experience. He enjoyed Convenience Store Woman because it wasn't overtly descriptive, but this is pretty much the only fiction book he's ever read. Can you recommend me something he may like? I would say that There's No Such Thing as an Easy Job and The Vegetarian are both books that may appeal to someone who really enjoyed Convenience Store Woman. I would also recommend the short story collection We Don't Know What We're Doing by Thomas Morris, which ultimately is about human experience, and a lot of these characters are in mundane jobs like in Convenience Store Woman and are reevaluating their lives. And I found it a really charming book, written in a very matter-of-fact way, but very compelling at the same time. Number 33, Hi Jen. I'm looking for a book with a theme of crafts such as knitting, sewing. A combination with historical fiction or magical realism would be a big bonus. Not magical realism, but historical and sewing. I would say A Single Thread by Tracy Chevalier, which is set in the in-between years between the First and Second World War. And it's about a character who joins, are they called the kneelers, I think? They're making the kneelers in churches, and it's about this woman who's learning how to create those, about her local community, and it's a brilliant book. Number 34, Hi Jen. I'm looking for a book that someone dealing with grief from a friend who died by suicide. He enjoyed 100 Queer Poems, Ocean Vuong, as well as South American magical realism. I would recommend Kaveh Akbar's poems if he enjoyed Ocean Vuong, and also collections by Hugh Min Win as well, such as the book Not Here. Number 35, Dear Jen, I'm looking for a book that gives me similar vibes to my all-time favourite, The 13th Tale. I also love The Shadow of the Wind and Station 11. Can I recommend The Crimson Petal and the White, because it is about the power of words and it has that rich storytelling element to it as well. So if you haven't read that by Michelle Faber, then that's the one that I would go for. I was just looking in the viewfinder and I don't think this lighting is particularly flattering. I feel like I should be telling you a ghost story. The light outside is very quickly disappearing, so I think that it's getting creepier by the second. Number 36, Hi Jen. I'd love a recommendation for a book for my nephew. He is 12, almost 13, and can be a reluctant reader. He loved the Wimpy Kid series until recently, having decided he is too old for them. He loves football. Can I recommend The Boy with Wings by Lenny Henry? This is a book that I read ahead of publication because of disability representation in it, and it includes football, and it's about a boy who is told he shouldn't play football. There's a very specific reason for that, which may be magical. It's a lot of fun. Number 37, Hi Jen. I'm looking for more books like Perfume. This is quite a long thing. Let me see. I'm preferably looking for anything 200 to 300 pages that goes into the dark, perhaps mythical, ecological, philosophical writing, descriptive like Perfume was, with words that can be really felt, or dark in the sense of magical realism, but doesn't have to be. Untold Day and Night by Bay Sewer is not magical realism, but has that almost, I was going to say, like, it feels like you're wading through soil, like you're going underground to read it. I may also have said that because of the other book I want to recommend, which is Follow Me to Ground by Sue Rainsford, so maybe these two are just combining. But both of these books are surreal and strange and very short as well, and I think they definitely do have a similar lyrical quality to them, like Perfume. So that was Untold Night and Day, which is translated from the Korean by Deborah Smith, and it's about a woman who works at an audio theatre for the blind, and she's contemplating art and passion and what you can get sustenance-wise from creative things. So yeah, I think it works in that way. I would also say The Dumb House by John Burnside as well, which is a book that I want to recommend for somebody else's recommendation. But if you haven't read that, it's dark and twisted in the way that Perfume is. But Follow Me to Ground also has that dark element. It's about a supposed father and daughter who can heal people. They bury them under the ground and then they can kind of harvest them back up again. It's weird. Number 38. Jen, I'm looking for a present for my mother. She loves Persephone classics like Dorothy Whipple and similar. She reads realistic fiction, mostly family sagas and such. A recent favourite of hers is Maggie O'Farrell. So I would recommend The House Opposite by Barbara Noble, because Barbara Noble does also have a Persephone classic, which is called Doreen. So if your mum has read that and loved it, then I would recommend that. If she hasn't read Doreen, that's a great one too. But The House Opposite is set in the Blitz, and Barbara Noble lived in London during the Blitz, so it's a really accurate representation of that. But it's mainly about this woman who's having an affair with her boss and how she bemoans the fact that all these sirens are going off, which means she has to stop having this affair with him, or it makes it more complicated. Really, it highlights everyone trying to get on with their day-to-day lives with the Blitz in the background, as opposed to everyone worrying about bombs all the time, because it had kind of become this new normal for everybody. And I liked how that was phrased. It felt very true, and I don't think I'd actually read a book about the Blitz that had resonated in that kind of way before. Number 39, Dear Jen, I really fell in love with The Essex Serpent by Sarah Perry, and now I'm looking for something similar. Strong female characters, a sprinkle of magical realism, and a cozy but eerie feeling. There's no magical realism in this, but there is a discussion about witchery, but more about how that relates to women in general and oppression. And it's called The Bass Rock by Evie Wilde. It's set over 3 different periods, and they are united by this place called the Bass Rock and a house that is there. And it was my favourite book of 2020. Number 40, Dear Jen, I'm looking for a book which is more or less plot-free, so has a description of a place with magic in it. Thank you. What Willow Says by Lynn Buckle is about a grandmother and a granddaughter who live in the woods. The daughter is deaf and the grandmother comes up with this sign language for them. Reminded me quite a lot of Captain Fantastic, actually, but it's mainly about their relationship with nature. It's beautiful. The House Upon the Dirt Between the Lake and the Woods by Matt Bell is about a married couple who go and live in the woods. They're trying to have kids and they can't have kids, and the woman buries under the house, creating rooms for all her grief. It doesn't have a huge amount of plot, but the writing is really, really interesting. 41, Dear Jen, I'm looking for a book for my friend. Recently, she has been reading books that she has categorised as unhinged women. She's a big fan of Shirley Jackson and Atesha Moshfegh. I would recommend Indelicacy by Amina Kane. It definitely gave me Moshfegh vibes. It's about a woman in an unnamed time and place who works in a gallery but wants to write. But it's mainly about how she sees the world as a painting and describes it in minute detail. It's about the pointlessness of existence, but also trying to form lives for ourselves out of chaos. I think your friend would enjoy it. Number 42, Jen, I'm in the hunt for an eerie philosophical book For a lover of horror who's a PhD student in philosophy, perhaps a horror book that discusses personal identity or discusses an ethical dilemma of some kind, this was the one I wanted to recommend The Dumb House for. It's about a man who decides he wants to pinpoint the moment of death. He wants to see a soul leave someone's body. So in order to do that, he has to kill people. He also wants to know if language acquisition is divine. So he does interesting things to experiment with regard to that. I'd also recommend Under the Skin by Michelle Faber, which is a very eerie science fiction book. And I can't really tell you anything about it because it would ruin it. You just have to trust me. It's fantastic. And if you've seen the film with Scarlett Johansson, which is great, the book is vastly different. I think you could read them and maybe only afterwards think, wait, those two are the same thing, because they go in completely different directions, and I love both of them for different reasons. Number 43, Dear Jen, I'm looking for a book for my friend. She really liked Briefly a Delicious Life, but I have trouble finding anything similar. Thank you for a lovely video. Has she read Nell Stevens' other book, in particular Mrs. Gaskell and Me, because it's fantastic? If she has, for some reason I want to recommend Winter by Ali Smith. I think it has that comical element to it, also queerness, and also interesting discussions on art. Yeah, I would say Winter, also a great Christmas book. 44, Hi Jen, I'm looking for a book for my 87-year-old father. He'll read and enjoy pretty much anything I give him, but what he really enjoys are well-written stories with heart. If he hasn't read the Harold Fry trilogy, I would recommend that, beginning with Harold Fry, The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry. Then it's The Love Song of Queenie Hennessy, and then The Angel of the North, Maureen and the Angel of the North, or something like that. Anyway, I read the third one recently and it was lovely. I'd also recommend My Name is Leon by Kit Wall. Those are both books that I think of as warm, heartfelt storytelling. 45, Dear Jen, I love books about the mundanity of work life. Convenience Store Woman, Halle Butler, Joshua Ferris. The New Employees book was too sci-fi. I needed it to be more boring. Okay, well, The Factory I thought was really boring and didn't like it. And I also didn't love The Woman in the Purple Skirt. But if you really want boring, then maybe both of those would be good for you. I'd also recommend Indelicacy by Amina Kane, which I mentioned before, which is about the ridiculousness of the way life works. Yeah, those would be my recommendations for you. Number 46, Hi Jen, I'm looking for recommendations for my husband. He loves books on nature and walking. He recently loved Night Walk by Chris Yates. He also loves dystopian/science fiction. Let's merge those two things together. Science fiction, dystopian, and nature writing. The Beauty by Alia Whiteley, which is a post-apocalyptic book where all women are now mushrooms. And also Greensmith by Alia Whiteley, which is about trying to save the planet from climate disaster and going into space. Number 47, Dear Jen, I would like a recommendation for myself. Something about resilience and facing hard times with a hopeful message. This year has been too much and I need the inspiration. Sending love. And also I would recommend another anthology that I am part of called She Will Soar, which is a collection of poems which is all about this. It is on this topic and I recommend it very highly. Number 48, we're nearly there. Hi Jen, my sister adores your work and Alia Whiteley's, so do you have any suggestions of more authors/stories that blend the speculative with some horror and humour? I would recommend the collection Outsiders, which is another anthology that I am part of and also has work in it by Alice Slater, Leonie Ross, Julia Armfield and many others. I would recommend Julia Armfield as well, and Alice Slater. She's also in the book Spiritus Mundi. Her debut novel is coming out next spring. Ramona Osterbell, Karen Russell, and Julie Oranger are also short story writers who I would say we share similarities with. Number 49, Hi Jen. I'm looking for a book for my aunt. She is currently enjoying murder mystery books by Agatha Christie and the Thursday Murder Club. She's studying ancient Hebrew and biblical studies too. I would like to gift her a book with a diverse set of characters. Some queer representation would be a plus. The Last Place You Look by Kristen Lepionka is a great queer crime novel, and it's the first in the series if she ends up liking it. Number 50, Jen, I need a recommendation for someone who likes books with fantasy, mythology, dark themes, and lots of queer representation. She also likes graphic novels. I've been sharing my love for fairy tales with her, so I'd love to get her a book that has some fairy tale elements. Can I recommend, is it At the Castle by Emily Carroll? It's this queer gothic graphic novel. Also would recommend The Sister Who Ate Her Brothers, my book illustrated by Adam D'Souza, which has queer rep and is horror and fairy tales. And I'd also recommend A Portable Shelter by Kirsty Logan, which is not a graphic novel or illustrated book, but is a queer collection of fairy tale inspired stories. Now that I've removed my phone, I can see how dark it is. But anyway, the tree has been very nice in the background. Maybe I need to continue to just hold this here. Anyway, I hope that this was helpful, this Christmas gift guide. As I mentioned at the beginning, if you would like to join me for Vlogmas over on Patreon, it's $2 for the whole month, but all of my usual content will be on this channel too, fret not. That is it. I am gonna love you and leave you. Thank you for joining me here. If you're new and you like this video and you would like to subscribe, please do so. And I will see you for another video very soon. Sending lots of love. Bye.